This is the A to Z podcast. Expert insights on leadership, business, real estate, investing, and growth.
Welcome everyone to the podcast. Today, I'm excited to talk about riding the Silver Tsunami. To talk about this important topic, I invited my frequent guest, Tom Crumpton. He is one of the top business brokers, CCIM, founder of business acquisitions, and specializes in helping international investors to come to the United States and invest. Tom, thank you very much for coming and being here. I know you're a very busy man, but you've been always here, a frequent guest, and I appreciate you for your time and knowledge and experience that you share with our audience.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this.
I want to start by providing the audience context. I want you to explain to us why this theme is important. Why should we talk about Silver Tsunami? And who do you think would be benefiting from this conversation?
All right, we're going to be here a while. First of all, the fact that it has a name, right? That the media has given us a name is pretty impressive. So what we have is 40% of all the small businesses in America are owned by baby boomers. Baby boomers are between 60 and 80 years old today. That was 1946 to 1964. That puts the average about 70. The average American male lifespan is 73. So there's going to be people basically dying at their death, so to speak. So almost half the businesses are owned by people over 60. We're going to have the largest transfer of wealth in the next 5 years with these transfers than we've had in the last 20. This will be the biggest thing that's happening. So the people that own those businesses need to get them prepared to sell. The ones that are saddest are the ones that the people die at their desk, don't sell it because they had no idea what it was really worth, thought it was worth less than it really was. And if they'd had their idea, if they'd had a valuation done, they might have sold out years earlier. So the people that this is important to are the sellers, obviously, the people that are retiring, the people that all those people and their families, because there's some college funds and life-changing money on some of these sales. Buyers, the people that don't want to be in corporate America, the people that want to run their own thing. These are successful, ongoing, long-term businesses, 20, 30, 40 years for them all. So they run. They have management in place. A lot of these people, once they hit 70, yes, they own it, but they're not going in every day. They already have management there. Now, there's also a big group of people out there that sell commercial real estate. And on the industrial and the office, they see these people. They talk to these people, and they hear them say, I'm thinking about retiring. The other thing they hear them say is, I can't sell my building without selling my business. Those are the people we want to talk to. Even if you don't want to sell businesses, just call us, give us that referral, and when we close it, we'll send you money. We pay really good referral fees. And everybody out there knows somebody that owns a business. Their neighbor, their cousin, their uncle. When it comes time to sell that, they need a professional. I'm a professional. I've been doing this 25 years. I've got the CBI designation. There's only 5% of us in the world that have that. So we can help. There's going to be an unbelievable number of people that need it. And the quicker you get everything put together to sell, the better off you'll be as a seller, because at some point, it's going to be a buyer's market. When so many of these hit the market at the same time, there's only going to be so much funding. There's only going to be so many buyers. So if you're thinking about it, it's in your next 2 or 3 year plan, time to start planning is now.
This is a great context for all of our audience watching now or watching the replay. What I love about what you touched, which is this program is also very important to the people who are baby boomers. And I'm sure we'll come back again, focusing more on baby boomers, on how we're going to help them the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to prepare their businesses ready for exit. We could work with them by providing some exit strategies, helping them make their businesses ready for sale to get fat checks when they exit. You mentioned about 40% of the business owners are baby boomers. I want to add a little bit more figures to provide more context to our audience. Currently in the United States, 70.6 million of the population, they are baby boomers out of 300 something. And also 12 million businesses are privately owned, and they are owned by baby boomers, which is 12 millions of businesses in the United States, which is 40% that you mentioned are owned by baby boomers. And also the valuation of these businesses, these 12 million businesses, is $10 trillion. And the annual revenue of these baby boomer owned businesses, they are $6.5 trillion. They earn every year the $6.5 trillion. And out of all of these businesses, in the last 5 years, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24, there were $25.3 billion worth of business sale owned by baby boomers. And just this year, I don't have the complete data, but what I have is many of these businesses, they are law firms. 65% of the law firms, they are owned by baby boomers. Services and retails, 13%. Traditional small businesses, plumbing, auto, accounting, and so on. As you can see, trillions of dollars is involved. And as you mentioned, they are retiring or about to retire. And people who are in this industry, they should give prior attention to that. Anything that you want to add on that one? The magnitude.
No, those numbers are great. Economists, finance people, they all look at those kind of things. But Jimmy, the business owner, the 68-year-old guy that's had this business for 30 years, those don't mean anything to him. What means something to Jimmy is somebody like us that can come in and extrapolate all the things he does personally out of his business, because all business owners do. You know, your car, your travel, your health insurance, your kids' college, those are all things can be added back into the profitability. There's a recasting procedure and an evaluation. And that's what he's concerned with, is how much is it worth today? And how can I get it all or most of it at closing? Because nobody wants to hold too much of a note or a long-term note. And those are the kind of things we help with. See, an owner's job is to get that top line high, right? Make money. His accountant's job is to make that bottom line small, because that's what he pays taxes on. Our job is to go in, find out what the one-time expenses, the personal expenses, and add those all back in. And this is all accepted throughout the industry. Lenders understand it, as long as there's a check or something backing it up. And therefore, you can do the valuation and they know how much they're going to get. Even if they're not ready to sell today, that's very valuable information for them, because now they know what it'll be worth 6 months, 2 years, whenever they're ready. And a lot of times when people see that number, they went, really? Okay, I'm ready now. That's a big enough number. I can retire on that. So it's a step they have to make. They care about it. They care about somebody coming in that's experienced doing this. Those numbers are wonderful. The fact that he's going to have competition is a reason for him to do it now, or her to do it now. But honestly, Jimmy, that the business doesn't care that there's $40 billion or $20 trillion. Economists all do that. But this is all about him and his family. And a lot of these stories, they're wonderful. The guy started with one truck. Now he's got 100. And he couldn't go to college because they didn't have the money. And unfortunately, he didn't have this built up yet when his kids got college age. So his kid works for him. His kid couldn't go to college, but this is send my grandkids to any college they want to money. And that's life changing. So a lot of that is rewarding as well. Yeah, the financial part is right. I heard those commissions. Yeah, that's nice. But you're helping these families, you're helping that next generation, and you're giving this owner something to be proud of, other than the fact that he's got it. Now he gets the money from it and can pass it on to the next generation or two.
I'm glad you mentioned about how this is very important to ordinary business owners, so small businesses. What's surprising, which you mentioned earlier, is that even if the potential is high, even if it's a major shift and wave that's going on, a lot of people are neglecting this. I'm talking about the business brokers and commercial real estate professionals, buyers, investors. I don't know how many people have information about the magnitude of all of these businesses that are going to be sold in the next couple of years. And it looks like there is lack of information. Last time I was talking to an owner, a business owner, and this business owner told me that he's looking to sell his business by this amount. And I asked, how did you reach to that point? He said, I've been working on this business for the last 20 years. And in his mind, because he worked on that business for 20 years, he thought it should worth this much. It gives sense. I'm a business owner. I understand that. But unless they work with business brokers like us, sitting down, like you said, making those adjustments to know the current valuation of their business, they don't have any idea where their business is. You mentioned, for example, the valuation could be high, they want to sell. The valuation could be also too low down there. They're looking for 5 millions. It could be maybe $200,000. And it's better to know it the earlier, because they could be able to adjust themselves. Tom, in this regard, have you helped any baby boomers who didn't know the valuation of their business and they reached out to you?
It's the same procedures as anybody else. If you want to know what your house is worth, you can go on Zillow or Redfin and you can find 6 neighbors and get an idea. There's enough information out there. Same thing with the commercial building, but there's nothing on businesses. There's no comparables that your average person can go to. Now there are systems. There's the lenders. They all have books, if you will, on what different industries are worth. If everything you're collecting is on electronic funds transfers and memberships, well, that's worth a little bit more than something where every dollar has to come in every month, right? A new sale. There's all kinds of different ways to look at that. But there's methods to it. So you go with the owner, you sit down with his books, and you go through things. And if there's too much cash, Mr. Owner, I will tell you to run it for another 6 or 8 months and put all that money you're not putting in the bank and claim it. And most business owners, if they get cash, I've got 30 years of history, folks, they keep a little. Very, very seldom do they put all the cash in. And there's ratios that you can prove that, right? If an industry has cost of goods sold is X percentage and this one's way off, well, yeah, something's happening that's funny. So generally the owner will come around with you and be honest after a while, after you kind of convince those things. But you need to have those valuations, and that's where it starts. Now, a lot of times we've been able to help increase values fairly quickly because there's steps you can take to do that owners don't know about. Well, we've always done it this way. Doesn't make it right. So there's things we can do, monthly things we can help them with. And that's part of what we offer is some counseling, some coaching up until it's time to sell it. And then we'll give them a credit at closing for helping them get there because we increased the value for them. Not most businesses aren't perfect to sell, but they're close enough to get where the bank understands it. And a lot of times what we do is we'll sit down and say, okay, 80% of what you got here is legitimate. The other 20, the bank's not going to give you credit. The buyers aren't going to give you credit. So we're going to put that on a note. And they're okay with that. And a lot of the times the buyers will see that, yeah, it's there. It's just he didn't record it right. He didn't record it correctly. So he'll get all his money. But there's ways around all of these things.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned, which I want to highlight, which is you compared about how it could be relatively easy, for example, to figure out how much your residential home its value, and also if you have a commercial property, it's relatively easy to figure out, but businesses, they are not. And part of the reason why we have higher commission rate for businesses is because a lot of background work. I was having conversation with someone, and the first thing this person asked me was, what's the commission rate? And I didn't know the current valuation of the business. And I said, it depends. It depends on the valuation of your business. It could go from 8 to 15%. And he immediately hold his head and said, oh my gosh, why are you guys charging this? I am paying like 3%, 6%, 4% for my home. And why are you guys charging that much? Because it looks like a lot of people don't understand the groundwork it takes for business brokers to clearly and exactly evaluate the current valuation of a business. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Oh no, there's a lot of steps to that, and that's the correct answer. Is it? You don't know how good the books are. You don't know what size it is. You don't know what the value is. You can't say it's going to be this amount. Well, in a house in a neighborhood, they all pretty much sell for about the same amount. So and they put big signs up and advertise them everywhere. Hey, this is for sale. You don't do that with a business. Everything's discreet. Everything's behind the scenes. Otherwise, your competition, competitors would eat them up. The competitors would steal the employees. The employees would leave because the unknown is worse than the safety. So it's all behind the scenes. So yeah, we get a lot more money, but we do a lot more work, and there's very few of us. Unlike residential realtors and commercial realtors that everybody knows a few, nobody knows that many people that do what I do. And if you put the initials in there of CBI, almost nobody outside the real estate industry knows two of them. So yeah, we can charge a little more, but we're worth it because we get you more.
Exactly. Selling also a business is a little bit difficult. Like you mentioned, you don't use every avenue and use some numbers or some features of the business to attract buyers, because you don't want to identify some features. And that's also hard to sell businesses. And that's why the rate is high.
Well,
I want to talk
about, because there's not signs everywhere, right? There's not signs, hey, this business is for sale. People don't know about the industry. I was just a speaker in Boston a couple of weeks ago at a national event, and I asked the 300 plus realtor crowd, everybody in the crowd was a realtor, how many people sold houses, how many people sold commercial, and all the hands went up. When I asked how many people sold businesses, there was one. Other than myself, out of 300 realtors, there was one. And I knew that person from Nashville. So you don't find that many of us. When you do, a lot of times the people are grateful because they had no idea we existed. So it's a tight industry. It's a professional industry. And it's needed. And it's going to be more needed in the next 5 years due to the Silver Tsunami. I ask people every time I do one of these, and there's a whole bunch of commercial people, I ask, why? Why are you competing with all these hundreds of thousands of people trying to compete for that same building when there's thousands and tens of thousands of these coming for sale and nobody's there taking a listing? So it's a good opportunity if you're in commercial real estate or you like business and you're selling residential real estate. This is a good opportunity to actually look into somebody like me as a mentor or as an assist to help you break in, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity with no competition and at higher commission rates. And don't even get me started on the fact that you can bring in people from other countries on visas, right? They'll pay more because their first thing isn't, I got to buy a business. Their first thing is, I need a business strictly to keep my family in America. So that last nickel or dime at closing isn't all that important.
Yeah. For the benefit of people who are watching, I want to tell them behind the scene, because I always introduce you as one of the top business brokers in the nation. In the same Boston conference that you presented, someone who was there, I don't want to specify them, I don't have any permission, they told me that the leadership of the brokerage was keep on referring you, talk to Tom, talk to Tom. And this shows that you've done your homework, you have track record, and it's an honor for people to find you and work with you because you know what you're doing, and you've been doing this for more than 2 decades. I just want to give people this out, and whenever I refer you as one of the top nation's business broker, I mean it. That said, I want to ask you a quick question about how can people find these kind of businesses, businesses that are ready for growth, businesses that are owned by baby boomers?
Well, my first answer to that is call me. We can help them. Naturally, that's going to be the first answer. And that's a discussion that will save them a lot of time and money. Now, the second thing is wherever you live, you can get on the internet and look up Biz Buy Sell. BIZBUYSELL.com. And there's all kinds of businesses for sale there. Trouble is, not all of them have been vetted, and not all of them have good brokers behind them. You'll see things that sell for numbers that don't make sense, and that's because they shouldn't be in there, because if it doesn't pay for itself, it's pretty much not worth buying. But there's a lot of things in there, and you can get some ideas on types of things to buy. Everybody knows about air conditioning companies or plumbing companies. We see those. But we sold one in March. They sold Brazilian hardwoods here in America from Brazil, all, upper scale, tougher, more expensive wood out of their house. You find all kinds of really sharp, good businesses that are making money, that have consistent buyers, consistent income. The seller sold it, the buyer bought it. He's actually going to go push it harder than the 66-year-old man that sold it. So there's a lot of that there. But if you don't know what you're doing, you could be part of, a scam. There's a lot of scams out there too. If it seems like it's too good to be true, yeah, it probably is. And we look right through those. And because of the initials after my name, we're pretty well respected. So when I call a broker, the initials bring me up above some of the other ones, and I get some better answers. So that's where I would go look. Biz Buy Sell would be my first place to look if I lived in Dubuque or, Kansas, and just thought, hey, I want to maybe buy a business here. It shows you what's available.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to emphasize about the importance of people reaching out to the professionals like yourself, because if you go out trying to buy businesses directly from the sellers, you may not be able to gauge and know how much its current worth is. You may not be able to know what kind of questions to ask the sellers to know where the business is. And that's the best approach. Even if you're going to pay commission for buyer representation, this is one of the best routes to find these deals. And also I want to mention, and maybe you can add on that one, many of these baby boomers, they may not put their businesses online, partly because they don't want the people to know. And also they're not rushing for money because they could be very rich and wealthy. And therefore, there are a lot of businesses that are off market. And knowing business brokers in your area where you want to buy is great because they can find you these off-market deals. Do you want to add a little bit on that one, especially finding these off-market deals?
Yeah. Okay. So if there's one thing I've learned over these years, the most important thing to a seller is discretion. It's keeping it quiet. He doesn't want his employees to know. He doesn't want anybody else to know. And he'll look at them and lie to them all the way to closing. But he's protecting his assets, and I don't disagree with that. But so you have to be discreet. So when you see a seller advertising it on Biz Buy Sell or Craigslist or some other silly place, it's generally because he's seen a broker's told him what it's worth, or his broker has told him why it won't sell or what the problem is. So he can't use a broker. So he'll try and do it himself and scam somebody. That's generally what I see when I see somebody selling their own business. And when I see an ad, we call them. There's a perfect client for us if this is all correct, right? I can't remember ever signing one up. I can't remember ever getting into one and not seeing a problem or having somebody, trying to sell it on a cash he doesn't get, but he says he gets. Basically being dishonest or just wanting too much, not realizing that somebody's still got to live after they pay him. I mean, haven't seen a successful for sale by owner work yet. And I'm leery of anyone I see because it breaks number one rule. They're not being discreet. Here we are, we're for sale. He's just, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah. I want to expand on that one, Tom, because buyers, if there are savvy buyers who have been buying, they know what kind of questions to ask and what to look for to be safe from being scammed and buying a business which becomes a job or becomes even a liability. And therefore, what are some of the things that people, buyers and investors should look for? I can give one example. For example, if I have to buy a business, one of the things I want to know is whether the business is independent of the founder. If it's dependent on the founder, if I buy that business and if the founder retires, I'm stuck. If this is just one. Give us a little bit more about what are some of the things that are red flags before you invest your hard-earned money and buy businesses.
Okay, well, if they won't give you the tax returns, financial statements, and the P&L tax, then there's a problem, right? That's a red flag right there. But if you get all those and it looks clean, then there's a whole list of questions. One of them is, do you have one client that makes up 20% or more of your sales? If the answer is yes, and it's 80%, and it's the owner's brother-in-law, that's probably not a safe buy. And these answers are the same. These questions are the same questions that a lender will ask. So I always suggest don't use all your money. You can buy a nice business for 10% down. Use an SBA preferred lender. The word there is preferred. And they have a list of questions and they change over time, but they'll help ferret out some of those other things too. The other ones are, do you have how many relatives you have in the business? If his family's in the business and they can leave the day after closing, that's a problem. Who's your biggest competitor and how long have they been there? Well, it's his brother. And they're competitors because one of them left the other one. Well, that's an issue. They're still talking, right? There's still Thanksgivings and holidays. They don't hate each other. Well, why isn't he just selling to his brother? Something's not right there. Just little things like that, but they're all ferretable. You can ferret them out pretty quick. But there's a whole list, and I don't want to take time to go through them all now. And if I go through them all now, then people might not call us. So.
I got you. And also, it's not really worth for a lot of buyers and investors. Their time is very important. Why should they go out, wing it, and do all of these things rather than just call a business broker who could do this like this because they have a framework, they have the checklist, they know how to figure this out. And I agree with you. We don't need to go that far. But there are people still who want to buy it by themselves. One thing you mentioned, maybe we can come back again with an ACBA loan lender or broker to talk about that. One thing you mentioned, which is a lot of people don't know that they can buy businesses without putting their money. I can give you a good example. It was last year. Someone called me and told me that, AZ, I have $250,000. Just go out there and find for me a laundromat for $250,000. I had a couple of questions because I don't want to jump in and just get commission and find them a business because I have their best interest in my heart. And therefore, I was asking a couple of questions. And one of the questions I ask is, why do you want to buy in cash? And this person said, I only have $250,000 in my bank. And then do you know about leveraging the money that you have? Do you know that there are SCBA loans? Do you know that you can just put this as a down payment and get maybe additionally like 2/3 of this money, which means over $1 million worth of, they could buy $1 million or more business by just using that as a down payment. And the next question I want to ask you is that what are some of the smart strategies that buyers and investors should use to buy these businesses that are owned by baby boomers?
What are some of the what? I missed that word. Something blinked out.
Strategies, for example, one is getting loan from lenders. That could be one. I'm sure there are other strategies and approaches that someone could use to buy these businesses smart. I mean, if somebody has the money, they can buy cash, no problem. I know these major buyers, institutional buyers. I think many of these institutional buyers themselves, they want to leverage their money. They don't want to buy cash. But let's say they have money.
The institutional ones, the ones that come in want to do a roll up, right? They want to buy a bunch in the same industry. Oh no, they're minimum down payment every time. You know, they want a dollar note, they want funding, they want to keep their cash so they can buy more.
Exactly.
My first suggestion is always like the business. Find something you like, something you can understand, something you can relate to. Don't do a hobby, or you'll turn your hobby into something you hate. I've seen it happen too many times. I lived in Florida, watched people do a lot of fun businesses, fun things, but it was their hobby, and then they said they didn't like it. So find a business you like. Find something you're comfortable with, and you kind of can understand it. If you're not into internet, IT's probably not your thing. And then go after the financials. Then make it make sense. But if the numbers work, and you really don't like it, you're probably going to find a reason not to buy it before closing, and you'll be out thousands of dollars in a lot of time. So find something you like first, and then make the numbers.
Tom, before you go, I wanna get a little bit insight into that. Some people may say, "Why should I buy?" Because I see some people who say that don't pursue your passion. Passion doesn't matter. If the number works, just buy. Would you please give some strong reasons why people should buy businesses they love and like?
I say that should not buy the ones that are hobbies. If you like diving, don't buy a dive charter, because now what was your hobby is now your everyday. And when it was your hobby, you went out when? On nice days. And on bad days, you stayed home. You can't do that if you're the owner of a charter business and people are coming in. You're in Florida, they come in from New York, and you've got a charter. You've got to go out there. You've got to go out in a rough season, a rainy day, and the kind of day you would never do on your own. So I've just seen too much of that. So I say, don't do it for your hobby. I'm sure now, if you love food, yeah, buy a restaurant. If you really love food and you love being in the kitchen and you've got some dishes, I've seen that work. I've also seen it not work, because they just got tired of trying to come up with new things, and just not everybody's an inventor, right? He could cook a half a dozen things. At some point, they were done. So keep your hobbies and your pleasures and things away from the business, and buy something you understand. Buy something that's going to have a need. We're going to have air conditioning needs forever. We're going to have plumbing needs forever. AI is not going to fix either one of those, folks. So those are safe, solid businesses.
So let me get clarity, because my position is personal. I'm not saying everybody should do it. You're right. Somebody should not pursue their hobby and turn it into business if it is not. If there is no demand, they should not enter into. But if there is demand, and if that's their hobby, I think that's a great business. If there is demand. And another thing is, if even in business brokerage, if I don't know much about the business, if I don't have any passion to that industry, that business, I rather prefer to co-broker with someone. My question was, if somebody doesn't like something just for the sake of number, because it's profitable, should they really buy that? And of course, there are different school of thoughts. I wanna get yours. What do you think about that?
I wasn't quite sure what you said, because the internet broke up there. You got to make it work financially. I think if you're asking about numbers, it has to work. And on an SBA loan, or just go down to your own banker, they'll run numbers for you. and they'll show you where the ratios are and tell you, no, that's not enough money, or no, you don't have enough to do this. So, I'm big on getting help, hire a broker. We help a lot of people. Bring a lender in. If you've got an accountant, let him look over the books with you. Don't listen to everything, because they don't own that many businesses. They just know how to report what they're told. But the financials have to work. I don't know how to say that any differently.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was saying. The internet was no good. You didn't listen to me. That was my point. My point is, if you have a hobby and if the number works, if there is demand, go for it, because that's your hobby. You love it and you make money out of it. There is a business, you don't understand it, or you don't have passion for it, you don't like it, it's unlikely that you will be there when the going gets tough, because you don't really like that business. But if you find a business that you like, the business that works, the number works, that's a business you want to chase. And I know there are other people who will say, actually, I don't want to invest in businesses that I like. I just focus on the number. If the number works, I don't care whether I like it or not. One strategy I want you to help us a little bit understand better is seller financing. I know that especially baby boomers, because they are affluent and they have cash, they have money for various reasons. They may not want to, for example, sell in cash. They want to become a bank. Can you give us the benefit of using seller financing, and what's the best way to use seller financing?
Okay, so 99% of the sellers don't want to finance. They don't. Their first statement is, I want all cash. So we explain to them that doesn't work, because if they're saying that they don't trust the business to go forward to pay something on a note, then he must know something nobody else knows that's bad for the business. The SBA requires at least a 10%. Normally that's plenty note from the seller. They just want to tie in for the same reason. Make sure that he feels like the business is going forward. Unfortunately, have too many buyers that show up without enough cash to begin with, and they're like, well, we'll put 5% down and he'll carry a note. Well, now he's coming out of pocket for commission. So the seller walks away from closing with no money. Those don't work either. So the majority of the time, the buyer's putting down either 10 to 15% with an SBA note, and then the seller's holding 10. That works. That works very, very well. When the seller, for some reason, his numbers or whatever don't allow for a loan, then he carries a bigger note, or he takes less money. That's just how it is. And once they're presented those options, they'll make decisions. Now, if you find something where it's just starting to take off, or it's got a nice wings to it, but the seller's old, there are earnouts. There's ways so you can pay him for more money later on top of the purchase price based on sales. He's carrying a note, but it's going to be based on sales. There's a lot of ways to do this. You just can't go with no money expecting a seller to carry 100%. And we tell sellers, don't expect cash. It's easier to get a seller 10% more for the business and him a 10% note than it is to get seller for the original price, all cash. That's just scares the lenders, the buyers, scares everybody. Yeah, it's been here 30 years, but you're selling it now and you don't want to hold a note forever at all. So what's wrong with the business? That's a normal question.
One thing I want to cover is about what are the advantages of sellers for using seller financing, because some, they, like you said, many of them, they want to just get 100% cash. Some of them, they're okay to finance a little bit and get the others from lenders and stuff like that. But for those lenders, for those sellers who are open to finance the deal, what are some of the advantages that they have to do that? If
The advantages, there's a few advantages to that, and it happens mostly when there's real estate involved, because now the seller has a real asset, right? He's got something tangible to hold instead of just the business. So the first thing is a quicker closing, because the banks take 3 to 4 months sometimes. So you can close it a lot faster. That makes everybody happy. The other one is he gets all his money. and he gets more money than what the sale price was because he gets all that interest. And if it goes sour 2 years down the road, he's got a big chunk. He's going to know it because he's not getting his payments. And a lot of times he can take it back over, save it, and then resell it again. But generally, those are the benefits of the interest. Those are the benefits of a seller financing. It's quicker close. He gets all his money, and he gets more money than he would have because he's getting the interest on the note.
Exactly. If I have the money, if I'm not rushing to get cash, I would finance and get the valuation that I have, because if I'm financing it, I should get the price that I'm looking for. One thing I hear from CPS is that rather than just selling your business with cash, if you seller finance it, you benefit from the tax from capital gain, because rather than just paying capital gain right there, the entire term, if you spread it down, you pay less tax, and that's also one of the advantages that mentioned.
Okay. AZ, I understand the tax angle. I understand all the benefits. But when you present that to a seller that he gets to save this much money on taxes, but he's still risking this much money on a note, this doesn't matter so much. He's like, well, I'm still putting on a note. So that's really a problem. A lot of times that's a hurdle you have to come over. So the taxes are there, but there's a lot of ways to get around the taxes. There's all kinds of non-compete agreements. There's consulting agreements. There's a lot of things you can do to mitigate and reduce some of the tax liability. Certain kind of business business sales, you can actually go into a 1031. It's limited and it's careful, but you have to do it. But not too many of them are saying, okay, I'll risk $1 million note because I can save $100,000. No, that's a benefit if the seller is willing to do that. Now, I'll give a tidbit away. If somebody's buying the land and leasing the business, or I'm sorry, buying the business and leasing the land, or not full price on the business building, you cross collateralize the notes, because the business will be one company, the land will be another, and you don't want them not paying on one and paying on the other, and yet still getting to keep it, right? So you cross collateralize so that default on one is default on the other one. So they can't like drag you out on rent or drag you out on mortgage payments and go force you to foreclose while they're still making money on your business. That's just one of those little tricks you learn over the years. So that, and if
I hear you.
They were planning on doing it to you anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's just so it's just a little, and there's a lot of little tricks like that out there we've learned over the years can help protect both sides.
Yeah, and also we're not financial professionals, we're not lawyers, and we're just giving them some tips and highlights for educational purpose for them to go out and explore. I think you and I may invite someone who is a CPA, who is expert in the area of tax down the road. We may bring them in. Maybe we can talk about tax advantage for sellers and buyers. I think that would be a powerful topic to cover. Before we finish our discussion today, let's talk about why the next 5 years are very important to ride the Silver Tsunami.
Because these people are going to be selling them. There's the youngest guy in that group right now that owns almost half the businesses is 61 years old. Average age of that group is about 71. They don't want to work forever. They're getting to the point where they have to sell. We have sold more businesses in the last 6 months and listed businesses where the owner is over 70 than I have in the last decade. It's just they're aging. The baby boomers, which was a huge group of people, right after World War II, right? And then in 45, this started in 46. Everybody had 4 to 6 to 8 kids. It's the largest group of defined baby boomers, babies, whatever they want to call that, whatever that category is we do, Generation X, the millennials. It's the largest one in 100 years. So they're out there. They own these businesses. They're going to die or get to the point they can't run them anymore. It's time. It's not a choice. That's gonna happen. It's kind of like you fill a funnel. Eventually it's gonna start going through and then overflow. We're overflowing soon.
Yeah, and definitely, this is also important for the sellers to understand that. Earlier, you touched it, which is if they're not selling quickly, what happens is that down the road, it becomes a buyer's market because there will be a lot of businesses out there and you have fewer buyers. And maybe
And
next time we're
selfishly,
going
I'm looking forward to that, right? So,
to.
but there will
Yes.
be a time where instead of having one plumbing company to sell or one air conditioning company, we'll have 3 or 4 to choose from. And that's going to drive the prices down.
Yeah, definitely. That's the challenge. And the baby boomers, they should contact business brokers or whoever want to use. If they have a large company, maybe they may reach out to investment banks. But if you are interested to catch up this ride, and if you are a buyer or investor, this is really the right time to leverage the opportunity that's available. Tom, before we close, do you have any last minute word, any advice, or anything that we missed to cover?
We covered most of it. If you're out there and you own one of those businesses, you're one of the baby boomers, call us. It won't hurt. First call is free and we can help. If you're needing to buy a business, give us a call. We'll figure out the parameters, how much you have, what you're looking for. And if we don't have one around now, we'll wait as soon as one comes in, we'll help you.
You know, what
Do
one
not,
thing.
do not work with the seller who's selling it himself. If you have to, if you really think you're good, bring in an accountant, bring in an attorney, and bring in a broker because something, 99 times out of 98, it's wrong. Something smells wrong.
Yeah. One thing I want to emphasize is that if they work with us, one of the advantages that we have compared to other business brokers is we have a lot of professionals in our network, and we could be able to connect them with these proven, experienced professionals like CPAs, lawyers, and stuff like that. Which means when you work with us, you're working with the people in our network, and you have to tap into that advantage. And also EXP Commercial, which is a global brokerage. And if you're looking to buy somewhere where we're not licensed, we could be able to connect you with someone we know, someone who is very, very experienced. Tom,
Yep.
I enjoyed this conversation. Unless you have any last minute word, do you want to share with people where they can find you? What kind of resources that you have for people
I'm
to check
easy.
you out?
Tom at the word business, the word acquisition.com. I've done this so long when the websites came out, I was able to get that one. So it's Tom at businessacquisition.com or team at businessacquisition.com. Might get answered quickly. My superstar operations manager, Mandy, gets those as well. And she can answer them a lot of times, a lot quicker than I can, but we will get back to you.
Awesome. Tom is also available on LinkedIn. He's very active. He posts almost on a daily basis. If you want to learn from him, the blogs that he posts, believe me, you won't find them everywhere. These are very practical, to the point, and they are gem. And you want to follow him on LinkedIn. Everyone who's watching live and also watching this in replay, we want to thank you for being here. If you have any question or suggestion, or if you have any suggestion who we should interview and what topics that we should cover, please reach out. Thank you very much for being here. We look forward to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting us be here.
Sure. Thank you.